Since the beginning of the passing parade, people have been more interested in the news than anything else. Yet, to get away from the news, there has always been something like these, to give us escape from reality. Fairy tales told to the children by the fire. And then in Grandfather's time, the Nick Carter dime novels sold by the countless millions over the land. To become in our day, the stories that range from nonsense to adventure and are still called the funny papers, which in America are read daily by 50 to 70 million grown-ups and children of every age and class. Horatio Curdlepuss here disapproves of the comics, but seldom misses an episode. Convalescent soldiers the world around delight in. Make-believe is rare medicine to those who have seen too much of the real thing. And to the kids, of course, anything with plenty of pictures and plenty of action is strictly super. In the files of tattered old newspapers, the pictures blurred by 40 years of time, we find the first of them. The Yellow Kid, appearing in 1897. Windsor McKay's well-drawn Little Nemo. Then came one we still remember, Happy Hooligan, the still active Katzenjammer Kids, followed by Boob McNutt, then to Mutt and Jeff, and the still suffering jigs of Bringing Up Father. With these among the beginners, the comics have grown in a single generation into one of the biggest publishing and printing enterprises ever known. Here is one of the veterans, drawing the incredible hardships of one of the most familiar comic characters of all. Captain Katzenjammer, the most indestructible father known to man. The meanest children, Hans and Fritz. The inspector, and Mama, who thinks that Hans and Fritz are just misunderstood. It has been estimated that if the firecrackers and dynamite used by Hans and Fritz were really in existence, we would have had enough explosives on hand for the Second World War. So we leave the artist, H.H. Knerr, as he plots new cut-ups for the oldest bad boys of the comics, the Katzenjammer Kids. This cartoonist bears one of the most famous names in the newspaper world, as he draws Mutt and Jeff, older than most of us and still going strong, as is the man who first created them, Bud Fisher. This is the cartoonist who has carried on brilliantly since the death of Billy DeBeck, chiefly with the assistance of this odd little fellow from the hills. Snuffy Smith and his jug of corn squeezing. His patient mountain wife, Lousy. Barney Google, currently with the Navy. And Sparkplug, the world's worst racing horse, with Rosebud the Keeper, nearly forgotten today. All the characters of Fred Lasswell, Jr., and keeping him very busy on the job. Many cartoonists are serious painters in their private lives, like this one, who helped start the change from slapstick humor to a serious story. In 1919, he began the adventures of a typical American family, led by a plump little man with a kindly heart. Uncle Walt himself. Skeezix, who has been growing up on paper for 20 years. His wife, Nina, Auntie Blossom, and the youngest generation of the family, with only us middle-aged fellows to remember Walt's gasoline buggy of 1920. Frank King, the man whose comic strip we know as Gasoline Alley. Here, one of the comparative newcomers, who began his strip during the gangster era, with that guardian of law and order who has been shot full of holes, chucked over cliffs, frozen in ice, with never a dent in his manly profile. Detective Dick Tracy, Honest Dick Tracy's partner, Junior, and Tess Trueheart, still waiting for Dick after 13 years, to say nothing of such charming people as Flat Top, the Brow, Gravel Gertie, and Measles. And so we bid farewell to Chester Gould as he dreams up some new villain called Octopus Puss or Toon Face. This is the artist who began the fantastic world of the future idea. Handsome Buck Rogers, who sails around from planet to planet, squirting disintegrator rays in every direction, together with Buddy, Dr. Hewer, and a goodly supply of beautiful females. Dick Calkins is the father of these people on paper who gallivant around with Buck Rogers in the 25th century. This dark-haired young man is respected as one of the outstanding craftsmen with his pen, as he tells his remarkably intelligent adventure yarns of men at war. The serious-minded Terry, Flip Corkin, copied from the real-life flyer Lieutenant Colonel Cochrane, the Dragon Lady who plays Mata Hari to Pat Ryan, and some of the nastiest Jack villains out of captivity. Milton Caniff, whose careful drawing and observation of life have made him one of the leaders of the cartoon industry. Each year increases the popularity of the paper people created by this easygoing gentleman who enjoys himself as much as the characters that he draws. None other than Dagwood Bumpstead, who never took a bath in peace and privacy in a dozen years. Blondie, the brains of the family, Dagwood's neighbor with whom he's always in trouble, his pride and joy, the children, and this is the cross that Dagwood bears in the form of the 5 puppies, and the 12 layers of indigestion known as the Dagwood Special. Chic Young, who goes cheerfully on, and with Blondie and Dagwood provides the nation with some of its most innocent nonsense. And although many of the most popular are not shown, these leaders are typical of the wide variety of humor and sentiment that makes up the cartoon parade. Van Buren, with his characters of small-town life called Abbie and Slats, with Becky for glamour, and bathless Groggins just for his own sweet-smelling self. The famous Ham Fisher, who provides his stories for the sporting fan. Honest Joe Palooka, the heavyweight champ with the heart of gold. And the odd little character called Max, who is neither deaf nor dumb, but who just doesn't like to talk. This is Hal Foster, who represents a new trend in the comics that has never been criticized, with his educational romances of the days of old called Prince Valiant. Likewise among the leaders is Harold Gray, whose heroine is the brave little girl who battles it out alone, Orphan Annie and her dog Sandy. We visit the artist who is perhaps the leading favorite of college students and grown-ups who like their humor exaggerated to the extent of fairy tales. Little Abner of Dog Patch, USA. The unbeatable Mammy. Pappy, whose chief happiness lies in turnip preserves. Sadie Hawkins and her father, and Available Jones, who will do anything for a price. Few people in the world outside the United States would understand these dream people of Al Capp's imagination. But in our country, Little Abner brings laughter to millions of readers every day. And there you have them. A few of the 20 or 30 leading comic strip makers of our time. The old controversy as to whether comics are good for us or bad for us goes steadily on. But the people on paper bring simple amusement to those who weary of real life in the American passing parade.
You know, people loves comical strips because they's not only amusing, but they's confusing.